We're going to go ahead and take a look at the unit circle. The unit circle means you have a radius of 1 unit. So we have a circle with radius 1, so we're 1 unit to the right, so the coordinates of this point is 1, 0. 1 unit straight up, so the coordinates of that point is 0, 1. 1 unit straight to the left, negative 1, 0. 1 unit straight down, 0, negative 1. Going straight to the right is 0 degrees, 360 degrees, 0 or 2 pi. Going straight up is 90 degrees or pi over 2. Straight to the left is 180 degrees or pi. Straight down 270 degrees or 3 pi over 2. Now, our first angle that we're going to look at here is 30 degrees, which is also pi over 6. Now, remember that if we're dealing with sine and cosine, we could draw in a right triangle here and we could figure out how far over we are using cosine. And the cosine of 30 degrees you're supposed to have memorized, and that's root 3 over 2. How far up you are would be your sine, and so the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. If we move up to the next one, that's 45 degrees, which is pi over 4. The cosine of 45 degrees you're supposed to have memorized, and that's root 2 over 2. Y is your sine, and the sine of 45 degrees is root 2 over 2. Going up to the blue one here, the next angle up that's common is 60 degrees. That's also pi over 3. There's a cosine for your x of 60 degrees. You're supposed to have memorized cosine of 60 is 1/2. Then we also have the sine of 60, which is root 3 over 2. If we know the first quadrant here, everything else is pretty easy. Now, the green one here was 30 degrees up, so that means we'd be 30 degrees back from 160. Or you'd be pi over 6 up, so you'd be pi over 6 back from pi. So we end up getting 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6. Now, you notice this green one and this green one, they're at the same height, but for this one here, your x, instead of going positive root 3 over 2, goes negative root 3 over 2. When we look at this green one here, we were 30 degrees up for that green. Now we're going to be 30 degrees back from 360, so that's 330 degrees. Or you'd be pi over 6 back from 2 pi, so that's 11 pi over 6. Now this green coordinate is directly below the one above it, so your x coordinate's the same. This one up here was a half up, so this one's a half down, so it's negative pi over 6. Looking at this one over here, both of our coordinates are going to be negative because we're in the third quadrant. The green is 30 degrees away from your axis, so you're 30 degrees beyond 180, so that's 210. Now, looking at the purple, that's 45 degrees up, so that's also 45 degrees back. 45 degrees back from 180 is 135 degrees. Or that was pi over 4 up, so you'd be pi over 4 back from pi, so 1 pi minus 1/4 of a pi is 3/4 of a pi. You'll notice these two purple ones are at the same height, so the y's are the same, but the purple on the right was going to the right, so it's positive. The one on the over here is going to the left, so the x-coordinate is negative. This purple one down here in the lower right corner is 45 degrees back from 360, so negative 315 degrees. It's also that pi over 4 back from 2 pi, so that's 7 pi over 4. You'll notice the two purple ones here have the same x-coordinates because they're right underneath of each other, but the y-coordinates are going to be opposites. Purple over here, they're going to be both negative because you're in the third quadrant, 45 degrees beyond 180, which is 225. And then we got to do the blue ones. The blue one was 30 degrees or 60 degrees up from your axis, so you're 60 degrees back from 180, so it's 120. Or you were 1/3 of a pi up from your axis, so you're 1/3 of a pi back from pi, so pi minus 1/3 of a pi is 2 pi over 3. Your x is going to be negative, and your y is still going to be the same because you're at the same height. Similarly down here, your blue was 60 degrees away from your axis. 60 degrees beyond 180 is 240, or pi over 3 beyond pi is 1/3 pi, or 4 pi over 3, and your coordinates are both negative. Then you'd be 60 degrees back from 360 here, or you'd be 1/3 of a pi back from 2 pi, and then we have our coordinates. This is the unit circle. You're going to need to have all these coordinates memorized, and you're going to have all the angles memorized. There's lots of patterns that show up here for helping you memorize it, and you will end up having quizzes over this.